got some Bradbury. Let's look at that. He's very popular. I like that cover. That's pretty good. I love a wraparound. It's got style. Classic stories. The Illustrated Man. That's a pretty good one. There's a lot of good ones in this. I remember putting this and the Martian Chronicles like on a pedestal for a long time. As a young reader, like, those books are both awesome. Yeah, what does fiction do? It's interesting to meditate on sometimes. Think about. But it enriches you. It gives you new ways of thinking. You know? It's a filigree on the matter of life or something. I don't know. My sister texted me that she and my nephews sometimes watch these videos. Hello, if you're watching these. Julie, Sam, and Charlie. Yeah, I like the cover. All right. I Sing the Body Electric. That's pretty cool. This is a beautiful little book. Beautiful. Ray Bradbury. Yeah, I really feel like I know him through his work, and I guess I read some interviews too, but he's kind of like a crotchety old guy in his interviews. That's just a nice paperback. Look at all this stuff he wrote. Dandelion Wine's so good. Speaking of which, Dandelion Wine is just a beautiful, interesting book. It's just a memoir that just like dissolves into the fantastical. With the most summary feeling in the prose. It really is evocative. It's a great book. I haven't read it in a long time. I wonder how it would hit at my age now. Reading this as a teenager, I was like, this is one of my favorite books. It's so good. Of course, my cat has to make noise in the litter box while I'm doing this. The summer of 28. That was a vintage summer for a growing boy. Summer of green apple trees, mowed lawns, and new sneakers. Half-burnt firecrackers, of gathering dandelions, of grandma's belly-busting dinner. It was the summer of sorrows and marvels and gold-fuzzed bees. A magical summer in the life of a 12-year-old boy named Douglas Spaulding. Yeah, I like barely remember the characters at all. I just remember like this dissolving milieu. Oh, look at that water demon. Summer 28. It's a good cover. Dreamy. This cover sucks. I don't know, it just does nothing for me. Some covers are strictly utilitarian. I don't know. I guess the image is kind of interesting, but it just kind of looks cheap upon first glance. I don't know. What makes something good or bad, you know? Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Hamlet. Oh my God. This movie terrified my kids. They were like traumatized by it. I was like, what's so scary in it? There's like a creepy old guy for a minute. Incomparable masterwork of the dark fantastic. But I remember liking this book a lot. Yeah. I thought very highly of this too back when I was reading a lot of Bradbury. I worked with this teacher at a middle school in the VI department, and she had a take that I'm like, that's probably true. And she said that she thinks, and this was just her talking from like a long career in education. And I don't know, she seemed like informed on this stuff. Anyway, squirrel. What's up, squirrel? Hi. What's up, Chris? How's it going? Just really want to go outside. It's a mother and daughter right there. Prisma and Squirrel. Squirrel, hey, you're so cute. Look at those paws. I'm just like that dog in the movie Up, but for a literal squirrel. I mean, a cat named Squirrel. Anyway, this is like about like a haunted shop, right? And the devil sells objects that seem amazing and great, but there's a catch. The Toynbee Convector. Beautiful. More short fiction from him. Don't know this one. That's interesting. It's filming. This one I read. Very good. I feel like I read this a couple times. And some of the stories many times. Like The Scythe. Love it. That's like one of my favorite Ray Bradbury stories. And I also really love this one where this couple has a baby born in the fourth dimension, and to them it looks like a glowing triangle, and it says wheelie, and they're all, it said father. It's really funny and interesting and wild. I also have this nice large size paperback copy of the Martian Chronicle. You know, I'll always get different editions of books I love, you know. At least for a while. I often end up giving them away. I'm like a casual collector who accepts the ebb and flow of the book collection. Casually obsessed, I mean. There's this great quote from some ancient Greek guy, but I forget who. It was like Epictetus or somebody like that. He's all, if I have a little money, I buy books. If I have a little more, I buy food. So I guess I say I can't understand that. I can, but most of my collection I get from very cheaply. I mean, I'm sure it adds up, but it's like thrift stores, you know, used bookstores, free boxes, you know, just working in schools and stuff. There's constantly free book piles. Let's look Ray Bradbury up in here. If Zelazny's in here, Bradbury's definitely in here. Let's just read this. Bradbury Ray, 1922. Oh, so he was still alive when this came out. Primarily a writer of short stories, most of Ray Bradbury's fiction is fantasy and horror rather than SF. He has no use for science except as an allegorical device. However, some of his fiction, although not SF by definition, can certainly be classified as science fantasy. In The Martian Chronicles, 1950, Bradbury writes of the experiences of a group of Martian colonists in a loose but thematically linked series of tales that span 27 years at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st. Poetic and insightful, the stories concern themselves with the changing human dynamics and the relationship between the colonists and the shape-shifting alien natives. Yeah, this is such a good, like, revolutionary, interesting style. It's always made me love stories like that. In so many respects, the tales are literary and humanist, and although Bradbury's images of the Martian colony are long since outdated, that hardly matters. The stories themselves are haunting exercises in narrative style and are more truly about emotion and character, not about the likely reality of Mars. Originally published in various genre magazines, the collected Martian Chronicles remains Bradbury's best work to date. That might be true. It's like it's his biggest feat. The collection justly received widespread mainstream success upon publication, helping to establish Bradbury as a serious literary player. The stories were adapted not too successfully as a television series in the 1970s. Bradbury's best novel-length work is Fahrenheit 451, 1953, a dark dystopic story set in a future society in which literacy and print are outlawed. The chief protagonist is Montag, a fireman, a man trained to seek out and burn books, who comes to realize the importance of reading and literature. Like the criminals he tracks down at the beginning of the novel, by the end he is memorizing an entire book to preserve it for future generations. The novel was filmed in 1966 by Francois Truffaut under the same title. Yeah, that movie is so cool, that Truffaut film. It has no text on the screen. Even the credits are read aloud over final imagery. Pretty cool. The only other book by Bradbury to feature much in the way of SF themes and devices is The Illustrated Man, 1951, another collection of short stories linked by an overall framework. Yeah, but you can feel the framework more, and it feels less integral than in The Martian Chronicles, I think. Another collection of short stories linked by an overall framework. The Illustrated Man of the title is covered in tattoos. Each of these tattoos represents a different story. The best of these include The Long Rain and 0 Hour. I'd have to revisit that one before I judge it, but I don't remember it as fondly. Of Bradbury's other short story collections, the most worthy of note are The October Country, The Machineries of Joy, 1955 and 1964, and the more recent Quicker Than the Eye, 1996. See also Dystopia, Literary, SF, Science, Fantasy. Recommended further reading. Desolation Road, 1984, Brave New World. Here's his biography from 47 through 98. Well, you know, he's really sparked a lot of young minds, and I think he's a great writer. It's like, there's just so many people. If you grow up reading Ray Bradbury stories, and there usually was one or two anthologized and read to everybody. It was sci-fi that broke through into education, into being taught in schools. Well, Ray Bradbury, you know. It's spring break, which means no school, which means no work, which is like cool, and then I don't have to wake up early necessarily, but bad in that no income. So gotta write some articles real fast. I don't know, hustle, whatever way. Beg the kitties to pray to their ancient Egyptian goddesses for favor. You're supposed to be their familiars. These kitties are up to some mystical nonsense, I know it. The neighbor did say that he sees them go outside, and the only way that could happen is if they're teleporting through the walls. And one time I asked Prisma if she wanted to go inside, and she went, no! She was outside having fun. I've definitely heard cats say words enough that I'm like, whoa, if you trained your ear, I bet you could discern some things in a few meows, not like with some frequency maybe. What a tail. Now a dog is barking, someone's yelling at the dog to shut up. And someone else is yelling about that. The squirrel is interested. I read this chapter book like kind of early. I think it was an unabridged version. It was just such a cool looking old book. And I checked it out and an equally cool old looking copy of Black Beauty. And I read them both, and Black Beauty I was like, it's all right. But Robinson Crusoe really resonated with me. No, I like Black Beauty too. It's a lot of that poor horse. Once I lived in a tent in the canoe on a lake. So crazy, a reservoir. 6.5 months, that trip. All around the edge of it. I guess I maintained a fondness for Ray Bradbury. Though it's been a while since I've read anything by him. I think a rereading of The Scythe happens every few months in teaching. Or some other short story from him. Well, alright, take care everybody. Glad to know you're all out there. Have a good one. This has been a look at some Ray Bradbury books. Do you like Ray Bradbury? Comments are good for stuff like that. Fun to talk and hear and what everyone thinks. It's funny, on one level, this YouTube channel is kind of like an invitation to be like, hey, you guys want to hang out with my book collection? But then, like, almost everybody's not allowed to talk in the same way that I'm talking. I mean, you are, but then it's its own thing. Like, you can make your own video in response, you know? But, like, you know, because it's just this video in this moment. Anyway, all right. Well, take care, everybody. I got some things to do, but I'll be posting more. See you.